Now we will talk a little bit on the memorandum of misunderstanding. Right? Now, if you go back to Russia and Ukraine was used to destroy Russia. And there was CIA headquarters and there were biolabs and things, near the Russian border in Ukraine. So there were two agreements, mixed agreement. Right? It was in Belarus and third agreement was in Turkey, and the agreement was almost, they were trying to sign on the agreement, and then Boris Johnson came and he overrode the agreement. He said, don't write this, we give you weapons and things like that. Now, Ukraine is losing a lot, but they are using drones. And there is a NATO meeting now, and they are going to spend a lot of money for drones. So I think the Russians are going to destroy the total industrial base of Ukraine. So that is where it is. Now when it comes to Iran, there were 14 points memorandum of misunderstanding. We call it the memorandum of misunderstanding. What Donald Trump wanted to do was to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Why? Because America was running low on diesel and kerosene, and America has some problems with fertilizer and so forth. So if you take the Vice President of America, said we wrote this, we signed this memorandum of misunderstanding just to buy time. So this is whether it is Minsk agreements related to, right? America and the Western countries were trying to use Ukraine to destroy Russia. This is the same thing, right? Now Americans are trying to use the Kurdish population at the border between Iran, okay, and also the Kurds are there in Syria, lot of Kurds are there in Turkey, and then we have Iran. So they are using the Turks, Kurdish population to hit the Iranians. And so now, if you take one of the agreement points in the memorandum of misunderstanding, as that you have this Strait of Hormuz, and Iran will control it. The wording is such a way it is. But now Donald Trump doesn't like it. So his main aim was to open the Strait of Hormuz. So Strait of Hormuz is open to certain traffic, and that traffic is going mostly to Asia, and that is kind of controlled by Iran. So if you take the other side of one side is Iran, other side is Qatar, and Americans are trying to send the ships from the Qatar side. Then the Iranians hit those tankers, right? So that is where the conflict is. Now if you look at the funeral, right? Funeral it signifies the Iranians coming into the world stage, and some of the Iranians want to have negotiations with America. It will not work. So Iran and Russia both will have to move towards Asia. They can't have, some of the people in Russia wants to have trade with America, but that is not possible. So this Iran and America also, and America has some problem. America has fertilizer problem, and some of the farmers are going bankrupt, and America is saying, okay, we are going to release some of the Iranian money which was confiscated, and you use that money to buy American farm product. So Iranians have nothing to do with it. So I think what is happening is that the memorandum of misunderstanding is dead. But Saudis and Qatar, all these so-called Gulf states, doesn't want the war, because there the war comes back, these countries, the economy suffer a lot. So actually, in my way of understanding, it is Pakistan who is carrying on this burden, right? And in Israel, in Iran, the funeral was a success. It was a roaring success. You can't say funeral was a success, but from a political point of view, it shows the coming of age of Iran. That means Iran coming back to the international era, international politics, and the Western countries. Iran has to move away from the Western countries. They can't have good relations with Western countries, because otherwise then Iran has to surrender to Western countries. And if you look at the Iranians say, some of the people who are mourning, they say they are actually criticizing the Iranian government. They say you have to punish Donald Trump and Netanyahu, because these people consider these two people as murderers, right? Donald Trump and Netanyahu. Donald Trump is shocked. Donald Trump didn't expect this kind of mourners or people who attended this so-called ceremony or whatever it is, funeral ceremony. They didn't like. Donald Trump is denying that these people are just, they are bogus people. They are crying for nothing, and these people hate this supreme leader of Iran. What is happening to the Iranian government is getting squeezed from two sides. They can't make any concession to Donald Trump. And second thing, some of the people are against the memorandum of misunderstanding, because they think that they have surrendered to the Americans. I don't think it's a surrender. When you have a memorandum of misunderstanding, you have to give and take. You can't get 100% victory. That's not possible. But the agreement are written in certain indirect way, so that you could have these negotiations, because some of the things what is written there, the Americans don't like it. So it is written in a vague language so that they can go ahead. But I think because Donald Trump is not interested, America can't have agreement. They are not they are incapable of agreement. That is what is shown in when it comes to Russia and Ukraine. So this agreement has no meaning. But then Pakistan is playing a major role. That is a severe setback for the Indians, whatever people say. And Indians have been building relationships with Iran. Earlier, Indians were, at least Modi's India was very close to Netanyahu, very close to Israel, but now it is trying to mend its fences with Pakistan, because Pakistan has become very important. And Donald Trump depends on Pakistan, but Pakistan, I have certain problems, the way they treated the Palestinian problem, and when they come to the Imran Khan's problem, Donald Trump, Pakistan worked what the Americans wanted. The present Pakistani regime, government, they work for the American, what the Americans wanted. So there is some, I have criticism of the Pakistan government, but if you take Iran, now Iran and Pakistan has come very close together, and Pakistan is holding this ceasefire, temporary ceasefire. Okay? So this ceasefire is like the Israeli ceasefires. When you have ceasefire, the Israelis, they never honor the ceasefire, right? So it is said that we cease, and Israel fires on us. That is what, when it comes to the Israel ceasefires, we cease firing, That means the Palestinians or the Arabs, and Israel keep firing. So Israel never honors the ceasefire. So same way Donald Trump was trying to use the same tactic, but Iran is Iran Iran understands that it has to destroy the military capacity of Israel. It has totally destroyed, right? Then only there can be some kind of negotiation. But I think the negotiations will be difficult to do with the funeral because the more nationalist forces are taking control in Iran. And my understanding is that there will be never agreement between America and Iran, because when Barack Obama had this nuclear deal, it was not ratified by the Senate. So even if Iran tried to keep up with the nuclear deal, the Americans never honored it. So they didn't remove the sanctions or anything else. So if you take Iran, if you take America and Israel, I mean, any deal is a fraud, right? This is something in this country. People in the political leaders and everything, if you have a deal with America and Israel, they will not honor it because they think that they are superior to anybody else, right? So my understanding is that Iran deal is kind of dead, but America's economy is in very bad shape because they don't have diesel, they don't have fertilizer, they don't have kerosene, refined kerosene for aviation industry. So they will try to destroy Iran. That is what the Americans are trying to do. They will try to use the ceasefire and try to destroy the leverage points which Iran has. But I don't think Iran government will be challenged by the people in this country after this funeral ceremony. The nationalist forces, or whom you call the hardliners, they will take more control. So I think sanctions, this memorandum of misunderstanding is dead, right? But Pakistan will try to revive it because Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states doesn't want to go into war anymore, because if they go into war, they know they are going to suffer. So Pakistan and Americans still believe in the Pakistanis. Now, when you take Erdogan, leader of Turkey or Turkey, Donald Trump depends not on this Erdogan because he's also part of the NATO, and some of the oil comes to Israel through Turkey, right? So Erdogan has no. Where he does it, whatever he thinks is good for his country, he does it. He's not that much worried about ethics or anything. So now, whereas this Netanyahu, Israel Prime Minister, he's trying to have a conflict he's trying to have conflict with Turkey, but Americans realize that they can't alienate the Turkey government, because that means Turkey will move towards Iran, right? So what is the idea of Pakistan? Pakistan has good relationship with America, but ultimately Pakistan wants to have relationship with Iran, then Egypt, then Saudi Arabia, and then Turkey. Now, if you take Saudi Arabia has some kind of understanding with Iran. If you take Turkey or Turkey, right, you don't know how Erdogan is going to react to next in the future. But I think he also will move towards Pakistan. So So Pakistan is the most important country in the region right now. Not, I mean, in a way, right? And Putin has realized that you can't have a deal with America. So Putin is moving more towards Iran, and Putin is going to send some warplanes to Iran, right? Now, okay, then I forgot to tell you that Donald Trump had some meeting with Putin in Alaska, and Putin thought that the war is going to end. No, actually, the war is going to going into the drone phase, and Ukraine is trying to going to using a lot of drones, and under that, the British are there. British has, if you take the British establishment, they have hatred for the Russians, and especially after when the October Revolution, because if you take the royal family was killed by the Bolshevik people. Now Putin is not a communist, but British identify Putin with the Bolshevik, and if you take the royal family of Britain, the royal family of Russia, they have close connection to the royal family of Britain. So Britain has a grudge against the Russians, and if you take some of the people, some of the politicians and the people close to the royal family, they looked down upon the Russians. So behind this Ukraine war, Americans are there, but the British also plays an immediate role. Now Britain has changed a lot of prime ministers, because Britain economy is in real bad shape. Now Britain is trying to move money. What was there for the British public? They are trying to move their money into Ukraine to build, to finance the drone industry, right? So, and then British Prime Minister get knocked out because Britain Prime Minister have neglected the infrastructure, roads, hospitals, schools and things like that. So now Nigel Farage has threatened to go for a by-election like Mr. J.R. Jayawardena. J.R. Jayawardena, when he wants to challenge Srima Das Bandaranaike, he went for a by-election, safe seat in Colombo, and he beat the then Samaga Peramuna government. So that was a symbolic thing where J.R. Jayawardena had a victory. Earlier, J.R. Jayawardena Mahatya Srima Das Bandaranaike මැතිණියගේ ප්‍රජාහිතය අයිති කරලා ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය සෑහෙන විනාශ කරා. ඒක ඇතුළේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා he created crisis inside the Sri Lankan Freedom Party, right? And he moved towards, he took on Srima Das Bandaranaike, and certain of her rights were suspended, right? But then before 1977, 1 or 2 years before, then he resigned from his, he had the earlier system, right? That you had, electoral divisions like Colombo South, Colombo North, Borella and things like that. And he resigned from his seat and he challenged the Srima Das Bandaranaike government. So similarly, this Labour government in Britain is very unpopular, and Nigel Farage is more, they accused him of some kind of racism among people, but he's trying to challenge the Labour government, and he is asking for a special election, right? General election, because he says that the Labour Party has lost the people's mandate. So he's also following something like what J.R. Jayawardena did before 1977. So there is something to watch in when the Prime Minister Starmer left, then you have new leader there. But it's just the Labour government is in crisis mode, right? So we have to watch certain things. In Russia, Russians are going to attack the industrial base in Ukraine, and the war will intensify because Ukraine is using drones mainly to engage in like terrorist-like activities, and the British are behind it. British are playing a major role behind it, and there is a NATO meeting, and they are going to get Donald Trump and other people to pass money for for Ukraine so that they can go into the drone warfare. But when you take the battlefronts, Ukraine is losing. Russia has intensified there because some of the Russian civilians have been killed by drones. So, in a way, Britain promotes terrorism against the Russian civilians using the drones in an indirect way, and Russians have not hit the British. They have not hit the British interest, but they have hit certain hotels in Ukraine, which are supposed to have these military personnel from NATO countries. So, if you look at what is happening in Ukraine and what is happening in Iran, there are similarities there, right? And I think memorandum understanding is almost dead. Misunderstanding between Iran and America is almost dead. Only because of Pakistan it is going, but American economy is real bad shape. So they can't go to war with Iran. If they go to war with Iran, Iran will destroy most of the infrastructure in the so-called Gulf states, right? So we have to watch certain things. Russians is destroying the industrial base in Ukraine. They didn't want to do that, but they have changed now. Because the Ukrainians are using drones to commit more and more terrorist activity. Second thing, after this funeral ceremony in Iran, I think the more nationalist forces will take control. So this funeral is a success, very success. I don't know how you can call it success when you say funeral, but politically it's a success. But then the more nationalist, or you can say hardline forces, are going to take control of Iran. That means Iran will be difficult for Iran to negotiate with America, because those negotiations will be looked upon as concessions given by Iran to America. So you have to watch that. And there is a possibility that Russia could hit one of the British targets or the German targets, because these people are supporting this Ukraine, but it will be a very indirect way of attacking British targets. And you have to watch what is happening in Britain. Okay, then in France, Le Pen, she was barred, or not in France. In Germany, you have the alternate for Deutschland, and if you take Le Pen, right, and they were trying to ban these political parties. One political party in France and in Germany. So you have to watch for these also, because most of these leaders in Europe, they are very unpopular, and there's, if you take Le Pen and her party, and then if you take in Germany alternate for Deutschland, AfD, they have become more popular, and they are trying to these normal parties are trying to restrict the activity, right? So that there is some erosion of democracy, And if you take the main reason is that the European countries are diverting their resources towards the Ukraine war. They are just forgetting the infrastructure in Europe, and there is severe economic crisis in almost all these countries because they don't have cheap Russian energy. They have to buy energy from for a higher price. So you have a lot of things to watch. One thing is that how Russians are going to intensify their effect against Ukraine. Then what is the status of the government in Iran? Because I think the people who want to have good relations with America they will lose power, and more nationalist forces will increase their power in Iran, but Iran will have good relations, will try to have good relations with the Gulf countries, and Iran will there have been never good relations with Europe, with the Western countries and Iran in the immediate future, because the Western countries would not want to compromise with Iran, whether it is Donald Trump or anything like that. And if you take Russian foreign minister, he says that America is incapable of negotiating, right? So America used negotiations just to buy time, and there are always negotiations are done. American negotiating bogus negotiations, right? Any agreement they will not honor. And if you take Israel also, when they negotiate, it is a bogus negotiation, and Israel doesn't honor those negotiations. So you have parallels between America and Israel, and I think it will be difficult for Iran to negotiate with America. Only thing, Pakistan is keeping it alive, but if you take the Iranian people, they are saying Donald Trump and Netanyahu have to be punished.